This off-grid wilderness trapline series documents a 3-month trapping season in the North Maine woods from our off-grid cabin. This documentary is for educational purposes only. Due to popular demand, I'm going to show you guys how to skin a marten. It's something that I've done 500 times before probably. It's often done at the end of a really long, hard day on the trap line, and marten are one of my absolute favorite animals to skin because they're pretty easy. I'm going to show you the way I do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I'm sure there's better ways to do it than I do, but this is the way I do it. And you don't need a really big knife for a marten. Little pocket knife will do, but here we go. So when they're primed like this, I like to start right above the anus. You can blow the fur out of the way if it's in the way. You know, when they're primed like this, it's hard to kind of see your cuts and stuff, but I do a straight cut across the top, maybe about a 1/2 inch long. A lot of these cuts you just have to imagine. And then I put my knife in on the side, put it in, don't worry about how deep you go into the meat as long as you don't come out to the other side, and run it up that leg all the way up the middle of the back of the foot. And it gets a little tough right around the foot right there. Come out at the end of the foot. You can find your cut again by blowing on it. Same thing, go right into the meat, up the back of the leg. Try to stay center of that leg right there. And then I'm gonna just run that right up that foot again. And once you get to those feet, somewhere like along the front of that ankle, I'll just run my thumb through it like that, and it's kind of like the shortest part because there isn't a lot of leg there. And then run your knife off the front of the foot like that, and now you have the leg. So once I get that leg, I try to keep the meat on the body even though I've made that cut, and I do the back side and then the front side. You pull it, but you're not yanking on it. And then do the same with this leg, right around that ankle somewhere. You know, peel it back, push your thumb all the way through, and then you're gonna peel it off the foot. That one I might not have made my cut all the way. There we go. And then you're gonna just make your cut off the top of the foot. They don't use the foot hair on those pelts like that, so you don't have to worry too much about them. I like to leave a little bit on there just in case it's a really cold winter, so their feet don't get cold. And then you're gonna peel that down, get underneath the tail like that. You can peel the tail down a little ways. Now I like to come around the front and the belly side and peel that back as much as you can and not go too low. And then you're just gonna make that cut on the front like that. So then when you peel the front, this one's a male, so we got the outie to worry about. And then you're just gonna run your knife through like that. So there you go. Don't worry about the testicles, they'll peel off the pelt like that. They're stuck to his belly. And now you have the tail to worry about. So that with the tail, I use a tail stripper. That one's got 3 different sizes. Obviously your smallest one's gonna be the best for marten. And then I put that on there like that. And then make sure you pinch it tight, your tail stripper. You know, you don't want to get fur in your stripper. You only want meat in there, and then the rest of it you're going to be pushing the fur down. And then it's a pull like that, and one steady motion. Now you have the tail loose like that. So that's like the hardest part to a marten. And then you're just going to pull it down, and then once you get it kind of all uniform, you just peel the whole thing down like that. And then here you might pick up a little meat around the shoulders. You could trim that. Sometimes I'll trim it if there's a lot of meat. Just make a little sharp cut. It makes it a little bit easier later if you're gonna take that flesh off or not. And then you're pretty much gonna run your thumb through the elbows like that, through the armpits. That comes apart pretty easy. A lot of people do this differently. They don't care how much fur you got for the front legs. They don't use it anyway. So I go pretty far down like that, and then once again you peel it to the ears. And now you want to kind of pay attention a little bit. Anytime you're doing the ears, I like to cut back towards the body so you don't leave a huge hole, and just make sure you go all the way in like that, back towards the body. Did I get it? Yep, I got it. And then I do another little pull you don't get a huge pull here, and if you have some meat there. And now you're gonna have the eyes and the jaw to contend with on the face. So it's your choice what you want to do next. Sometimes the eyes are super easy, sometimes the eyes are hard, I don't know why. But that's, once again, that's another straight cut. And you can see I'm pulling with my thumb on my other hand too, like that. That's an eye. And you want to leave the eyelash on there. If you miss by a little bit, you could always recorrect. But there we go, we got that eye right there. Nicked the jaw a little bit, but that's all right. And then straight across the top and bottom jaw through like the side of the mouth. And then, I don't know why, but I mean, they don't use the lower jaw, but a lot of times I'll just do the lower jaw first and do that the whole way down. You just gotta watch out for the fangs right there. If you mess up on the lower jaw, don't even worry about it because they don't use it. A lot of guys will cut that off during the drying and turning process. And then the part that's a little bit more important now is the nose and the rest of the face. So you're gonna have to cut, you'll make cuts on each side of the mouth, and then I'm letting the weight of the animal pull the hide some. So that way it's kind of like pulling it itself as I slowly trim the nose. And then when you get all the way down to the end of the nose like this, then you do a straight cut again, a little bit back towards the animal, let it fall, and then there's your Marten pelt right there. It's as easy as that. And if you want to go to the next step, you grab a Marten board. There's a Marten board I already measured out. This one's for male Marten. There's male and female Marten stretcher boards. This is a pretty good size one for Maine. And then I put them on sideways first because I like to clean the hide up. And what you're gonna see is under the armpit, you're gonna see that little bit of flesh right there. And then you take your knife. It doesn't have to be a sharp knife. I use the same one I skin with. And let me turn, maybe you guys can see it. And then you just, I'm not slicing or doing anything like that. I'm just running that knife down it and peeling that flesh like that. And then, you know, slowly turn it. There's not a lot of fleshing to do on a Marten. And then once you get it almost all the way down like that, you can grab it and just pull it off. So that's the flesh from one side of a Marten. And then they usually have 2 runs of belly fat. And you know, sometimes you'll have some organs down there still on there. So that's, you know, I'll do that at the same time. Check the legs, make sure you got, so that's the fat off that side. And then we're gonna flesh this other side under the armpit. And then, you know, that will dry even if you don't flesh it. But I like to, I have a lot of pride in my furs, and you know, that I think it serves a lot of respect to the animal if you do the best you can with the fur after you've harvested that animal. So we're gonna do the belly too, the belly fat on the other side, and then that's the same thing. You just kind of scrape it off, it pulls off, super easy. There you go. And then the most important part now, after doing that, it's all fleshed out and clean, is gonna be to split the tail. Now the tail does have a top and bottom, you know, it's not just a round thing, so you're gonna wanna put it up against the board flat. Now they do make tail strippers like this. This one, it doesn't really do well on small game animals, so I like to make sure my knife's sharp for this one. And then I'm gonna put it in, keep it flat. Oh, get a little bit of meat on the knife. Put it in, keep it flat, and you know, keep one thumb on the bottom of the tail. And then, you know, sometimes the first cut like that's the hardest. And then you're gonna run that down. If you don't keep your tail flat, it's gonna spiral on you. And they don't like that in the fur buying world. They like that nice flat tail. Sometimes this goes super easy. Sometimes it doesn't, I don't know why. But as long as you don't bob the tail, you're good. So we're all the way down through the tail there. That needs to be done to dry. And then we're gonna get them on here and kind of stretch them down. Stretch them down. make sure he's even. Look at both sides. You can pull on those front arms, the top arms. And then anytime you do pelts, you want to go a straight line across the bottom. I just use thumbtacks for this. So I do the 2 tacks on each side of the tail first. And then, you know, you're not overstretching. In the fur market, in the fur world, they don't like pelts overstretched because it makes the fur look thin and not as prime. So there's going to be 4 straight across the bottom. And then you could do whatever you want with your tail. Some guys are using screens to do the tails, or cardboard or whatever. I'm kind of old school. I just use thumbtacks and tack it down. You don't have to tack it the whole way. It's not an otter tail. But if you got a nice bushy tail, let's keep it nice and bushy. And, you know, every 1.5 inches or so, you could throw a tack on that to kind of separate the tail, so the tail dries flat and bushy, and it makes it look really presentable to the end user, whether they're going to hang this pelt on their wall in their man cave, or whether they're going to use this pelt for a garment or for trim. It gives them the option to use that tail. You know, they use tails on a lot of things. You know, they'll leave a tail for a hat, or they'll use some tails for a lot of garments, but some pelts they actually don't use the tails on. So you go down, spread it like that. You don't have to do that all the way to the base. Once you get pretty far, you get a tack in the bottom, so that's the tail and that side. The front side, we're gonna throw a stick in there, a belly stick they call it, or whatever, right down the middle. And the reason we do that is because this pelt is gonna dry and it's gonna shrink and it's gonna get really tight to that board. So the first thing, you know, it'll get tight enough so you might even not be able to get it off of that board. And the first thing we're gonna do is pull that stick out, and that gives us that little bit of leeway to get the pelt off the board, so that way we can dry it. So I like to put one in for the belly first, and then I do the back legs. I do them on the same side as the belly. Some critters you can go on the opposite side. I don't get crazy on the legs. That's another one I guess you could use like screens for, or something like that. But I just, like I said, I'm kind of old school on that, and I'll just thumbtack them, and you go every couple inches and spread that fur. Now, on a decent sized one like this, I will wrap those back legs around the corner a little bit. So there's some other videos on YouTube on how to do Marten. You know, check those out too, see which way you like better. Like I said, I do a lot of these. I do them at night a lot of times after running a really long line, you know, doing 100 miles on a snowmobile or truck, and, you know, anywhere from 8 to 15 miles on boots. So this is the way I do it. There's a couple videos that say they're the world's fastest and to do a Marten, and I've done 2 or 3 while watching the video and there's edits on those videos too. And this one you're not going to see edited at all. So this part that a lot of furriers probably don't even use, or the legs, is taking me the longest time. It's kind of funny, but like I said, this animal died and it died at my hand, so I want to make sure that I respect it by doing the best I can for it. So there's the legs. The front legs are going to dry open like that. Now, in a warm cabin like this, and, you know, if it starts to look like the back there is stretched a little bit in between those thumbtacks, just throw another thumbtack in. You know, it doesn't matter how many thumbtacks you put in. It's not going to devalue the fur or anything like that. There you have it. That Marten's 95% done. The only thing to do now is let it dry and turn it. Tune in every night for a new episode from this wilderness trapline. The season keeps getting better and better. If you turn on your notifications for this channel after subscribing, you'll be the first to know every day when a new episode airs. Thanks for watching.